Have you ever wanted to know just a little bit more about our guy, Phil? Well, you're in luck because this episode, I get to interview Mr. Crawford, and we're doing it in person, in studio, and it's an incredible episode. We get to learn about Phil's life, his career, experiences, all the different things that he's gone through. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. Before we get into this week's episode, I do want to highlight that we've gone through a rebrand, a refresh. We're still the Success Flow podcast, but you may notice a new logo and a little bit more design work in terms of our visuals and images that we're throwing up into the pod. So definitely check us out on YouTube or Spotify where you can see the video. We're also anywhere that you want to listen to your podcast. Wherever you're listening to us today, please hit the subscribe button or the follow button. It really helps us out. We also started an Instagram handle this year. So at Success Flow Podcast is where you can find us there. You get tons of content on a daily basis of clips you can hear from our episodes, and we'll continue to work on bringing incredible topics and guests to help you stay on the path towards success. So without further ado, please enjoy learning a little bit more about Mr. Crawford. Phil, you come from the Midwest, moved here to the West Coast. Tell us a little bit about what that was like growing up from a show me state to the West Coast when it was a little bit more of hey, we're here, have a good time.
Yeah, the Midwest is awesome. St. Louis and small town Missouri specifically is awesome. And especially I've been thinking about this a lot as I approach 40 because it was the best way to grow up. Our town was small. We knew you couldn't go to the grocery store, the hardware store without running into someone you know. It was rare. And we spent a ton of time at church. Athletics were all at church. We were in the plays there. We went to a school that was within the church on the Catholic side, 2 different churches. But it was just so family and community oriented with a strong work ethic. It wasn't a question of if you were going to be doing chores or working on the weekend, you just were. And there was no force about it. It was just it's what you did. So the Midwest is just, it's different. It really is a different culture. It's quieter. You don't really talk about your problems too much. You just kind of fix them and bottle the rest down and say everything's okay, which you can talk about problems being with that. I was lucky enough that my aunt exposed me to travel at a younger age. I was doing solo trips to see her at 11, which started here, and then she moved to Florida. And I'd go out for a week at a time in the summer by myself, which was just so eye-opening. She was doing really well in corporate. She loved me and loved spending time with me. So we'd get to go and as younger as amusement parks, water parks, movies, pools, and have that quality time. And then as I started playing golf, we'd play golf for a week at a time. So those trips, she opened my eyes to how small the Midwest is. And I knew that I wanted to grow in a different part of the world with everything that had happened as I closed high school. And she was living in the West at the time. I loved Arizona. Arizona State was amazing at golf at that time. And went to a golf camp, Arizona State's golf camp, co-ed, Palm Walk, 15, 16, golf. And it was done. I came home and my mom said, You're different. You're moving out there, aren't you? I go, Mom, I can't lie to you. I'm going to AZ.
So that one trip, you were old enough, you're a teenager, that one trip, and you knew right then, I'm getting out of St. Louis. And did you move in with your aunt? It was college.
Yep.
Right? When you came out here for ASU. I know you're very good at golf. Did you have aspirations of playing golf for ASU?
I would question you on what very good at golf is, and I was delusional, is what I was. I had a couple situations where I could have got a scholarship, more academic than anything, and they would have been D3. A couple buddies went to this school, and that would have just been checking the box in St. Louis had I done that. I was delusional and thought that I could put the best 3 rounds of my life together and walk on at Scottsdale Community. I knew that ASU wasn't going to happen, but I was going to try to play at Scottsdale Community, and within 3 weeks of moving here, went through that tryout, definitely cried after the end of that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And they didn't take anybody from the tryout anyway. But that was the dream. That was my whole dream at the time, was to play college golf. And I just wasn't good enough. I was delusional and chasing a pipe dream. But it got me out here.
So you came out here for ASU and you joined a fraternity. And was that to meet? You didn't know anybody, right? Outside of your aunt?
Anyone when I moved here.
So what was the reason for joining the fraternity?
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit because the fraternity was one thing, but I met first at Scottsdale Community College, an awesome group of, like, I had as much fun at Scottsdale Community College as I did at Arizona State, if not more. I also met Mark and those guys at that time as well at the apartment complex I lived in. So doing the student government thing, was vice president of the student body at Scottsdale Community College, which sounds nerdy as heck, but we partied like crazy, had almost a 4.0, just shy of a 4.0 GPA. In those 2 years of freedom and, again, not the Midwest, I'm in this, even it's community college, I'm out with palm trees and pool parties.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was the greatest place ever. I was through the roof excited. When I moved to Arizona State, I was hesitant on the fraternity thing, even though I always liked the idea of it. I liked the idea, I don't have brothers. It's always like that male camaraderie and the thoughts of it. And my buddies had rushed back in Missouri, and there was obviously no Greek at Scottsdale Community, so I did it. And the awkward part was I was rushing as a junior. So my whole pledge class, besides 2 guys, were 2 years younger than me. They're 18 coming out of school. I've already kind of got the ropes down.
Yep.
Third year in college, you've been working the whole time, et cetera. But it was also one of the best decisions I ever made because it was so hard, like from a time commitment standpoint. Plus, I didn't have any money. So I was actually putting myself into debt to go through this fraternity process. But when you talk about accountability and going through really difficult stuff, none of ours was the weird stuff. Nothing sexual or anything like that. But there were some really hard workouts, some really early mornings and late nights. We had to clean the house the entire time. And I learned that you're only as good as the weakest link. If 19 of us were perfect and one guy was late or one guy didn't do his job, the whole group suffered. And that bonding experience, like, guys don't have a rite of passage, and I'm not trying to make fraternities seem like this. It does sound like a stretch even as I'm saying it. But it was this difficult thing that we did together, and those bonds are really strong. I've never benefited from business because of my fraternity. Never... it was really that, going through something really difficult for that set period of time. I'm still close with a handful of the guys, but some I haven't spoken to since I graduated.
Well, and I understand when you're in a fraternity, you have like your big brother to a little brother, right? Yeah. So you have an opportunity to kind of mentor, what are you, maybe a junior or senior when they're a freshman incoming. And so what was that like? Were you into making it hard for them, or were you more so mentoring them to kind of show them how this life works?
Oh, it's a great question. My big brother, he was Anthony was so into it, and he took it so seriously, which I always respected. Like, our family line had a beverage, a specific Seagram's, and a 7 and 7 was our family drink, and he was like, "This is who we come from." And even my grandfather, like, it was really cool how he did it, which again sounds cheesy, but it was special. When it came time to draft my little brother, it got heated. Because I think it's like a draft, right? And you do it by your GPA and your badge number, it's this whole algorithm. Well, there's this kid, Jared Sugart, I might get a little emotional here. He was unbelievable, just a hoss of a human, and from Flagstaff, and he was kind of in and out whether he was going to be able to join the fraternity because of monetary reasons. Lost his father early. Like, there were all these connections. And like 2 of the guys were considering drafting him, and I just kind of was like, I don't know what we have to do here, but you've not connected with this dude the way that I have. We had to do some horse trading outside, but for him to be, because like, if you can't tackle him in the actives versus pledge football game, he can't be your big brother anyway.
So you mentioned some ties, and I know we're going to hit a personal note here before we get to some of the professional stuff, but I mentioned his father passing. Both of your parents passed. Mm-hmm. You also were adopted. What was that like coming to a new place? When did you find out you were adopted growing up? And then also, how did that affect you trying to develop relationships with people in your adult life?
Yeah, let's see how concise we can make this. So, was adopted. My mother, my biological mother, was having, I discovered this all when I was of age, more details later, actually, after my mom passed, but she was orchestrating illegal adoptions in St. Louis, in Missouri. I think I have nine-ish half siblings, which is also one of the reasons I wanted to get out of Missouri, because I was scared of
Who was around, if they were family
maybe
or
I was
not?
dating my sister or something like that. So I have these half siblings. I was the one that was intercepted. My biological mother likely went to jail. I was in the system for a year. And then my parents, my mom and my father, adopted me at 1 year old. So I lucked out. Unbelievable parents, again, back in the Midwest. Not a lot of money. They made an exception. They were actually under the income threshold, but because of my family's history of raising foster kids, they made an exception, and Megan and I were able to find a home with my mom and dad because of it. Fast forward, amazing childhood. My father abruptly woke up in the middle of the night with an issue with his aorta, went to the hospital. We didn't even know for 2 days. They didn't even tell us what had happened, and was in the hospital for about 3 weeks to a month, and had a successful surgery, which was high risk, but couldn't survive on the ventilators, and he passed when I was 12, actually. And so that switched things up a lot. It was tough on Mom. We got through, and was one of the reasons I really wanted to go, and she was supportive of me going to Arizona, chase my dreams. And then while I was out here, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she passed right after I graduated college in 22. So this bittersweet journey of being so lucky and so fortunate, but definitely a painful experience as well. But we got the best set of parents in the transforming years of our life. And if you don't lean toward that gratitude, it can be tough.
So going through that and meeting new people, obviously your aunt took you in. She's the one that got, you had visited, Aunt Kim, and her and Gary kind of became your home away from home parents, and we're very close.
No, not kinda.
Yeah. Godparents, everything. They were very close. But as you're meeting new people, like how were you able to compartmentalize that and not let that affect you, or did it affect you in a way where heading down a path you didn't want to go?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I definitely did go down a path I didn't want to go, but didn't realize it. I thought I had it all in check. I just always wanted to lean toward the gratitude and not be weaker. I've always felt lucky, and I wanted to lean toward that and not even acknowledge any of the pain, but I masked that in ways that were not the best, right? Partying too hard, working equally as hard, burning at both ends, glamorizing the work hard, play hard, like Wall Street and Scottsdale, like that's something to be proud of. The relationships with women, just masking that, looking for gratification because you're just covering pain. Like you're just trying to fill a hole.
Yeah.
And it took all of my 20s to figure out, man. You remember.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't really realize it. You could probably connect some dots.
Yeah, I did not realize. I could definitely connect some dots, but this story that you just shared, I didn't know for a long time.
Yeah.
But, okay, so masking pain, going through those things. We met at MasterTax.
Yeah.
You were 21, so obviously this is just kind of getting into college years and kicking off the 20s. I was 22. We're both getting into our first kind of corporate big boy jobs. And you're going through the fraternity, going through all these different things, and we're like, wow, this dude's cool. I'm cool. We partied together. We did a lot of really fun things. So getting into when MasterTax sold to ADP, at the time you were into marketing and other things, right? You weren't really into sales like what you're in now. So what was the pivot like? Because you didn't join ADP for long. You came over once the acquisition happened, but then you veered off and you went on your own way professionally. What was that like? Was it just like, I need to get out of here? Or was it like, I think there's a better opportunity for me? Or what made your decision? Or can you remember or recall any type of moment or thought that said, I need to move on to the next thing?
Oh, man, I recall it so vividly. That was such a turbulent, like we were in a real scene. And if everyone remembers, the economy wasn't great. We were just kind of getting out of the economy.
It's 2010.
In 2010. And so that acquisition timing, it was an internship that turned into me not going to law school, which is my original plan. Always give huge kudos to your father for making me think through that. Not that he had any incentive. It's not like he was really trying to keep me for crazy talent or anything, but he just made me consider, do you want to go to law school? Like, this marketing stuff is kind of working with Ray at the time. And I was just like, I don't know if I do. I just honestly was just like, I don't want to be poor. That was my whole mindset at the time. And then coming on and again, being over my skis, didn't know anything about payroll or payroll tax. Not a ton about marketing, but I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed the trade show stuff, coming up with how we could generate leads for you guys that can make some serious money.
I do remember trying to push you to sales. I was like, dude, you got to join the team.
I'll never forget a conference we were at. It was an ADP sales rep, and you're right, I'm at this time probably 22 or 23. We're around the conference table, and she's like, oh, so what are you doing? I'm hanging with all salespeople. I said, oh, I'm in the marketing strategy role under the MasterTax vertical. And she goes, marketing. She goes, aren't you just sales guys that can't close?
Oh, no.
And I felt so emasculated, and I was just like, I had nothing to say back. I was like, And I'm not saying that was a pivotal point, but it definitely had the juices.
What am I doing?
flowing.
Why am I in this role? Like, I know I'm better.
Yeah, and you and Sue had me thinking about it, and I was just so committed, like, to this marketing strategy. I got my MBA that MasterTax reimbursed me for a portion of with tuition reimbursement. I'm like, oh, I've got this marketing strategy mission that I'm on. It was like the resume got out there, and while interviewing for internally at ADP MasterTax, they were going to be shrinking the marketing function, which was an awesome team that I thought I was going to be a part of. And sure enough, a random recruiter reaches out while I'm going through multiple interview processes. And that's when Workiva entered the picture, which is, to this day, still astounds me.
Yeah.
How that popped out of nowhere.
Well, and they were a startup. It was WebFilings back then. They weren't publicly traded. You were probably, hired with under 50 maybe?
No, I was 257.
257, okay. Which, if you look at how many employees are at Workiva now?
We're close to 3,000.
Right. So that start, and you said, okay, I'm leaving ADP, massive company, many different avenues and paths you could have gone. And you took a jump and almost like a leap of faith for 100%. A company you never heard of.
I thought it might have been the worst decision I ever made. Yeah. And that's how life is. Career-wise, the best decision I've ever made. And it was right across the street from where we're recording this. I remember showing up, and there was a ping pong table. One of the reps was working from I'm not joking, he was sitting on a box. He's like, we are getting furniture.
Oh, yeah, baby days.
The head of sales was wearing a V-neck and Jordans, and we're coming from button-up to ADP. I'm in a suit. Like, this just feels off.
Yeah.
But he was able, it was the best pitch I've ever had, explain to me what the software was doing, where it was going. It might as well have been Arabic to me, talking about XBRL, SEC filings, and how the landscape was changing with cloud computing. And I just believed in it. Didn't start with the other company that I had an offer for, and that was going on 14 years ago.
I remember you were hired at one company, and you took the job. And then
Reynolds.
Literally to the point where you were going to walk in that first day, and you made the pivot to web filing. So what was so attractive, or what was it, just a gut feel?
Gut feel. The hiring manager, I'll never forget, he said, I'm not really supposed to say this, but say you don't move forward, because I had to no start with the other company while I didn't necessarily have an offer here. He goes, you have one more round with, at that time, the head of sales. And he said, say you mess up the head of sales interview in the next step, I'll find you a better job than X company that I know started for. And I was like, and he was so convicting of it. Like, I was like, gosh, that was when he closed me. Yeah. Yeah, it's just been an amazing ride.
So this was your first sales gig, sales executive. For the listeners, you're like top 1% in your organization right now. You're killing it. Been doing it for a long time. This is back in 2011 was the first year at WebFilings, Workiva? 2012. Going into that role and trying to have to prove to yourself, what was that like, especially after the conference where the lady was like, hey, aren't you just sales guys that can't close? And now you got to prove to yourself that you can close. This is your first opportunity to do that. How did you accomplish it, and how did you grow within the ranks to get to where you're at now?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is you realize when you get a chance to jump on a rocket ship. You don't ask what seat, you just kind of jump on and hold on. They were, in hindsight, they didn't know what they were doing building out this inside sales team. So how we were selling licenses and how we were expanding these customers, there wasn't even really a playbook. It was like, if they need more licenses, you figure out how. And so that was like the first couple years, and then jumping into what was really a renewals role, a really transactional role, but was making very good money. It was consistent. That was when things started to hit their stride, and it was almost, when you look back, you feel like, am I lucky? They were long days, super long days, but it was super transactional. And I knew in my heart of hearts with what I had read, I want to sell enterprise sales. I want to sell complex deals and solve bigger problems, not just doing these renewals or specific services and reviews and whatnot. That took, at this time, was really, really started leaning into the self-help stuff. Like, I got to figure out how to get better. And we just didn't have the resources at the company at the time for structured training. Like, I need to learn how to sell, like, be really good. And it was a lot of just books. And YouTube wasn't as strong at the time, or I wasn't using it that much. But that's when I just started leaning into asking the best performers what they're doing. Like, how are you consistently getting to these key individuals and increasing these numbers like that? And the platform was growing at the time. We were updating the software, and that's what I've realized more than anything to this day. Crazier than ever in this SaaS apocalypse, which is a joke. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a reason for everything that's going on in technology right now, but it has just moved so fast, year in and year out. Our platform, the markets, the businesses that we're selling to, that you have to keep reinventing yourself. It's nonstop.
Well, and you're dealing with publicly traded companies or companies that are about to go public, right? And so your software helps streamline the reporting aspects of what they need to accomplish on a quarterly basis. I would imagine you've ran into some big egos. So when you're sitting in a room across the table from some new, some tech startup who's about to go public, and which is quite frankly about to hit probably the biggest milestone and the biggest pivotal moment they've ever had in their entire life, to go list on NASDAQ or on the NYSE. What are those situations like? Almost war room style-esque, probably a lot of confidentiality that goes on. And you're 27 years old, and you're like talking to some 40-year-old CEO who's about to become a multi-millionaire once this company goes public. How does that sit with you when you're sitting down with people of success and power, quote unquote, perceived?
Dude, I was terrified.
Yeah.
At that time. Like, especially when we got into, you're running an enterprise cycle and we need to be on site. We're on a plane pretty much every other week. And first of all, in the beginning, I always brought muscle with me. I would take a leader, or almost always a leader, if we had the C-suite in the room. If it was, which is typically when we travel, that would be the case. But I had to sit down had the pleasure of being able to go to a couple meetings with our founder. And him taking me aside and saying, and that's the concept that I've mentioned to you before about equal business stature. You always say, it's just another human, which logically makes sense, right? But when you're in that scenario and you see the CFO of a publicly traded company, you don't feel like you have equal business stature. Yeah. It was the switch of, I have something valuable to bring you that's going to totally change your organization and make you look really, really good, protect your job, and help you sleep better. It sounds cheesy, but when you have that conviction in a product that you're selling, that changes everything. I'm here to help and serve you. You should really listen to what I have to say, or maybe we shouldn't have this meeting. If you're going to be pompous, I don't need to be here either. And that took time. That took reps and some sweat and some failures. But now it's like approaching it that way. How can I help you? And if we can't get on the same side of the table and you don't want to be helped, then it's probably not going to work out. And they can feel that. Everyone can feel that. Yeah. Very solutions-based is the way to be successful there. Absolutely. You mentioned earlier that you started going down the self-help path and reading a lot of books. And I don't think there's a single book that I've come across that I mentioned to you and you're like, oh yeah, I've read that. Oh, there are plenty. There are plenty, man. You have read a ton of books. I've never been a good reader, but you've read a lot. And so if I could, for anyone listening who maybe is going down that similar path, they're in enterprise sales, they're an executive, they're doing well,
but they're in that a little bit of that rut. Like, what got you out of that rut? Where would you send them? What would be the first book you would send them to pick up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's finding your mode, right? Like back in the day, it was hard books for me. That's not for everyone nowadays. I would say, first of all, a book's amazing to me. It's someone's insights or research they've done, especially autobiographies, that they're distilling all the knowledge in their life. It took them years to build, and you get to buy it for $20 and get through it in a matter of hours. Incredible investment if you think through that. I would say, what is the number one problem you're trying to solve right now? What is driving the rut? That takes self-inquiry. Buy a few books. Use ChatGPT, ask a friend, and just page through it. Don't say, commit, I have to read 10 pages a day, which is often happening today. Sometimes I'll just open a book in the middle or search for something through the book. And then see what catches you and read until you don't want to read anymore. Don't force it. But you're going to find something if you look long enough, and if you're really present with it, you're going to find something that might shoot you down a whole different rabbit hole. Maybe that's to YouTube, and hopefully you're using it intentionally better than I do or did.
Down the rabbit hole for hours.
God, it's
like, wait,
amazing.
that's not even where I started.
Just
now what am I looking at right now?
Any information you want, and there's going to be someone or a situation that speaks to you that'll give you that next step forward, right? And for me, that was meditation was one of the bigger ones. I mean, there are thousands of nuggets, but there's something out there. Someone's been in your position, and it's not endgame.
So what book would you recommend?
Because it's top of mind, and I just watched Nuremberg, and it got me really big, and I'm going to reread it and recommend it, Paula, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That's one. And I think it's just, there is so much knowledge, and it's written so well, and it forces you to look at one of the most, like the most evil part of humanity in history. And if you want to talk about a low point, if he got past that and provides a framework for what he saw, how other people got past it, gosh, how everyone has not read that book blows my mind. So that's a great start. And then I think The Power Now, Eckhart Tolle, is a great starting point. And you know I love Art of the Impossible. Mm-hmm. For those that are really getting their teeth around what they want to do, Art of the Impossible is just a game changer.
Yeah, that's a great read. So you're going through this process. You're compartmentalizing things. You're growing. You're getting out of your rut. You find hypnosis. You find meditation. You find manifest it. You get into this Zen kind of mode. How has that completely 180 changed your life from I'm just floating along to I get it now and I'm getting it now. I'm laser focused. What did that do? That finding those aspects of life and putting that into practice?
Yeah. I think what it forced me to do is realize that I and what is inside of me is the problem. And even that is not that big of a problem because you can adjust it. We, myself included, put so much value on external circumstances when everything that we're living is a reflection of what's coming out of us. So, and that sounds hokey, but the more you sit in silence and you realize what bubbles up and the results you're getting in life are a result of that, then you can start making tweaks. You can tinker and work on how that projection's coming out. And I think that's where everything starts. And then you got to get in the minutia and you got to be able to compartmentalize what you are really good at. For me, it all blends together in my ADHD brain that can be a challenge. But it can also take you backwards too. It is definitely not linear. You go so deep and you can, there's an ego involved, or for me, it was almost bliss of, oh man, I've got this thing solved. And then, oh, the universe loves it when you think that. And then it's a big gaping hole that you weren't looking at or that you're avoiding. And there's still things, when I look through the notebooks that we talk about, that are still big problems for me and haven't fully been cleared. And having peace with that there is no, it's just continual iterations and seeing where you've come from and keep adjusting it. Like, just keep at it. Like, there's no end game. Yeah. And having peace with that, finding peace there instead of fear, I think that's everything. The number one thing cited in all sacred texts is do not fear or fear not or some compilation of that. And I think that's what a lot of it taught me was like, just fear is so overrated. It's important for our survival, but what is there really to be afraid about?
Yeah.
You know?
My favorite Bible verse is 2 Timothy 1-7. It said, "For God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and self-discipline."
Dude.
It's phenomenal.
No notes in front of you?
It's on my phone. It's my background. It's like that one hit me about a year ago. And it's powerful. And it just, there's no reason to fear. It's just everything that you have in your spirit is power, love, and self-discipline. And when you can control those things, everything else rolls off your back and you just move forward.
Love that.
All right. So you have been on record saying that your goal, not only for yourself, but for others, is to help end unnecessary suffering through subconscious work. Talk us through Focusacti Group and what you're doing there.
Yeah. So love that you brought that up. And that really is the mission, right? And sums up what we just talked through. Like fear is unnecessary suffering. Suffering is kind of a part of this meat suit existence. We're going to suffer. It's hot outside. We are going to lose loved ones. You will have last moments with people and not realize they're last moments. And that suffering is legit. What's not legit is suffering thinking about the day when you are going to lose those people, the potential of losing your job. That's unnecessary suffering. And there's a quote about, I think we have it on the pod somewhere, there are two arrows. It's like the arrow that actually hurts you, and then the arrow of you thinking about the arrow coming. I botched that, but we create all of these situations in our mind that never happen, or we beat up on ourselves for things that we've done in the past that we cannot change. And that is unnecessary suffering when you start acknowledging it. If you can catch it and say, we're not playing that game anymore. Let's wait for the real suffering and save our energy and our powers for dealing with that when we need to. The way you do that is by getting into your subconscious mind, that wiring. What are your defaults? What is the behavior that you've told yourself, this is how I act when this happens? And that, back to Viktor Frankl, the space between trigger and response. Feel it. No, we're going to choose differently. We're going to let that thought go. We're going to take a thought of, no, this is what I want. This is who I want to be. And then you're changing your identity. Then you're changing the neural pathway and essentially changing who you are. That's what gets me fired up because it's happened for me. And you can only go through it so much and spend as much time on it as I have without wanting to sing it from the rafters. And it's helped me so much in work. And that is what excites me, is how it can help other people's in their careers, because it is getting harder than ever out there. People are suffering unnecessary because of how they're working, how they're feeling during work. And that's what I am committed to in my spare time, is assisting people with that.
Yeah, I think tapping into the uncertainty, right? I think that's what people are most afraid of. We are living in a world right now where there's so much going on and so much moving so fast, and we don't know what it's going to look like in 5 years. Whereas in the 1990s, you could almost pinpoint exactly what 90 would look like and what 95 would look like. But now here we are at 2026. You're not going to know what 2031 looks like. It's moving too quick. And so people who are going through that unnecessary suffering, it's out of their control. So how can we find those certainty windows, as you've talked about in previous episodes? And I think that's a big piece of that, and the work that you're doing is admirable.
How boring would it be if we had that certainty? If we knew we were going to be sipping pina coladas, ripping podcasts all day in utopia, how boring would this world be? People, that you don't put yourself in that scenario. It's the spaces in between, it's the downs. Without the duality of the negative, we wouldn't be able to feel the positive. And I know this is woo-woo out there sounding McConaughey-ish, but it's so true. Like, you've been go on a month-long vacation, you're going to want to get back to work in some form or fashion.
Yeah. So I had someone tell me, and I'm going to tell this to you too, when I started going down the path of self-help and saying things that seemed woo-woo, they said, stop saying woo-woo.
Yeah.
No one needs to know that it's woo-woo. You're just speaking your mind and how you feel. And sometimes we say, I know it sounds woo-woo, to kind of sugarcoat it a little bit.
I'm definitely doing that right now.
Yeah.
It's a good call out.
So That's just that's a piece of advice that I got, and I thought it would be appropriate to share here, just because I think it's a big part of your life, dude. Like, and the fact that you're sharing it with others, whether they like it or not, or think one way or not, or whatever, this is how you tap into your tribe and the people that you want to make an impact with, and that's what matters.
That's such a good call out, and needed it. Centauri said that to me at that presentation a couple of years ago, and I think that's something that I really struggle with. Is I live in authenticity is what we're all desiring, right? We're throwing around the word authenticity all the time. While even though we're wearing masks, like it's part of human nature to perform in certain environments a certain way, but we're all trying to be authentic. And for me, there's definitely this left brain love functioning in this system of corporate America and selling to accountants, but still being myself, but it's still kind of a mask. And that is a part of doing the call out, woo woo, when really I don't want there to be a line.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. I'm getting some coaching out of this. I love it.
Well, dude, this was fun. I had a really good time going through this, and I hope you enjoyed the reflection piece as well. It's, how long have we known each other? It's 20 years now,
Yeah,
19 years. And most of our conversations they're deep. We have deep conversations, but we don't really dive into the history of our lives very often. So this was fun for us to, at least it was for me.
Dude, in person, this is going to be a game changer.
Yeah. All right. That's a wrap. That's the pod. Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love you.